Hello everybody and welcome back, and today I will be talking about Artemis Fowl. And it truly is. That's such a horrible joke. Artemis Fowl is a movie that exists and we'll talk about it. I don't know if anybody remembers this movie coming out at all. I mean, originally it was supposed to come out during the summer, it was supposed to be released in theaters, but of course the pandemic happened and Disney just decided, well, we'll just stick it on Disney Plus instead. So we'll take a quick walk through this movie. It shouldn't take long because there's not really anything here. So this movie opens up with Josh Gad's slightly disguised voice talking about the legend of Artemis Fowl. And no, not that Artemis Fowl, that Artemis Fowl. Yes, the 12-year-old kid who can't even drive a car yet. And then you hear like this Irish music and you see this beautiful Irish scenery and you're getting lulled into believing that just might be a good Irish story. So after Josh Gad lists all of Artemis Fowl's greatness, we see Artemis Fowl in therapy. In this therapy session, they imply he tries to carry the great burden of his father's name, and that is why he is a prideful, snobbish jerk. This is why Artemis is so very, very, very annoying. After that therapy session, we get a compilation of Artemis and his dad talking to each other. Artemis really loves and respects his dad, but his dad is often away on business. His dad seems to be the only person Artemis truly respects. And yet, for some reason, when his dad talks about the little people in a very serious manner, Artemis really listens. Like, really listens. We get a moment where Artemis and his dad are sitting together in their fancy little living room, and Artemis is like, okay, just tell me when you're going. And he says, okay, I gotta go, I'm sorry, my helicopter's waiting for me. If I recall correctly, his dad says something about believing in the little people, and Artemis is like, no, I'm a big boy, I'm 12 years old, I don't believe in the fairies, they're just little stories, and you should take me with you. And Artemis's dad is like, I'm sorry, just let me keep you around just a little bit longer. I gotta do this at least one thing by myself, this one last thing by myself. So Artemis' dad leaves and poor Artemis is left all alone, back to his normal snobbish way of treating everybody else in his life. Artemis is alone with Dom the butler or something like that. I think his last name was Butler. They're trying to do this real lame joke, but it didn't work. So in the next morning, Dom is on the phone and he's talking about something. It looks like Dom is looking straight at Artemis, but Artemis is in bed and he looks like he's just woken up. So I guess Artemis's room is made out of glass. Very strange. Then Artemis goes downstairs to get breakfast. This big fat TV is on right smack dab in the kitchen. Not in the corner, not against the wall. Is just sitting on this convenient little counter in the middle of the kitchen. The TV is like, oh, Artemis' dad has been in an accident, and you know what? We think he's a master criminal mind. And Artemis is like, oh, they're slandering my dad, and he gets all upset, and Dom comes in, he drags Artemis away from the TV, so then the phone rings. And then Dom says, don't answer the phone, Artemis. But Artemis is already gone. He's running. He's gonna answer the phone. And he runs like a marathon around the mansion and runs to answer the phone. He picks it up and he hears this person talking on the other end. It sounds like someone disguising their voice, but I mean, Artemis can't see them, but when we see the person, it obviously walks like a girl, so it's definitely a girl. But anywho, some creepo has Artemis's dad, and Creepo says that they'll give Artemis's dad back if Artemis gives the Oculus to Creepo. Artemis is like, I don't know what the Oculus is. And Creepo's like, you're a smart kid, you'll figure it out. And Dom decides he's gonna take him to the secret room. He wasn't supposed to show this to Artemis yet because Artemis was still too young. They go down there and Artemis finds his dad's journal, which is just filled with so much information. It mentions the Oculus, and it mentions Opal, which is Creepo. Artemis is like, but fairies aren't real. Are they? Artemis doesn't believe in fairies because he's not a kid, remember? But he believes in fairies just like that. So we cut away from Artemis and we get introduced to a new character named Holly. a fairy police officer, I want to look at my notes for this, a fairy police officer who has recently found a lead about her dad. She's looking to clear her dad's name. I guess they thought he was a traitor and she doesn't believe that he was, but he died. And the last known place of wherever it was the Hill of Tara. We were also introduced to Mulch, who is also Josh Gad, who basically is playing a evil twin of Olaf, and which is not very scary. Mulch claims he's a dwarf. We're also led to believe that Holly Mulch had experiences together as officer and as perpetrator and may have a somewhat fun relationship. At last, this leads to nothing. They don't really speak to each other again. And Mulch is thrown in prison with a bunch of baddies because, you know, evil Olaf has to pay his dues. Then we cut to Creepo, who sends out a spy to infiltrate the police force where Holly worked. Dom and Artemis are getting ready to find the Oculus for a potential battle with Creepo. Dom is great at weapons and at fighting, and he knows all these things, so he's going to seek out the best fighter that he knows. So he recruits his 12-year-old niece. Yes, it's this kind of movie. Artemis can't find the Oculus, and he needs a fairy to find an Oculus. So he'll draw one at the Hill of Tara. See where I'm going with this? This is very clever. Then we come back to Holly. So Holly gets sent to the surface of the earth to find for an unaccounted fairy. And Spy Dude shows up and conveniently gives us all of Holly's dad's backstory. Holly's dad was responsible for stealing the Oculus, and the Oculus is missing. Holly finds a man-eating troll at a wedding reception, and this troll is wreaking havoc. He's throwing things, he's eating things, and Holly needs backup, so the elf police officer lady sends backup, and they do this really cool thing where they freeze time and everybody's frozen, and the elves can do their work and they can grab the troll and they can bring it back, and then they do this process where they erase all the humans' memories, which is great, but the issue is everything's a wreck. And when they undo the freeze time, the partygoers are just sitting there like, why is everything a mess? And why am I holding an upside down human being? The police chief, she orders Holly to come back straight away. But instead, Holly goes to the Hill of Tara. She gets captured by Artemis and Dom. The police chief is going to order a full-scale recovery to go get Holly. We come back to Holly and she wakes up and she just randomly yells, "Not happy!" Same, lady. Same. So Holly talks to Artemis for the first time, who's extremely annoying and extremely overconfident. Artemis is just being really annoying about, oh, I'm glad your friends are coming and I'm super smart. Do I look super smart? I'm the head of this whole operation. So all the fairy elves show up at the Artemis mansion. They start attacking Dom and Artemis. For some reason, Dom and Artemis win. Artemis wants to negotiate. The police chief does. Artemis smirks and says he wants the Oculus in exchange for Holly, seemingly unaware that the elves don't have the Oculus. He says no fairies are allowed in his house while he's alive. I guess because of this, he says this for some reason, the fairies can't enter, or the elves can't enter. It's strange that Artemis would know such a very important, like, small detail, that you think that's one detail that he would have missed, especially since he personally didn't believe that fairies exist. Or maybe he learned everything from the journal within 24 hours. I mean, who knows with this movie? So the police chief gets Mulch, to dig into the house to get Holly, and then to just leave. Mulch doesn't get Holly. Instead, he finds the Oculus. Artemis, who couldn't find the Oculus earlier, Mulch finds within 2 seconds. And he finds it, and it's in a safe behind the painting of Artemis' dad. Bet you didn't see that twist coming. So Mulch is trying to open the safe, and I guess dwarves are the only one that can open the safe. At least that's what we get between the cut-in between Mulch and Artemis, but Artemis knows he's there and Dom knows he's there. And Dom's like, well, what is he doing? And Artemis is like, no, leave him, I want him to do something. No one explained, like, well, this whole segment is really confusing because for some reason Mulch knows it's there. Why he knows it's there, or why does he think it's in there, we don't know. And we don't know whether or not Artemis has planned this from the beginning. If he did plan this from the beginning, Dom seems to be pretty much in the dark about all of this. Like, Artemis' communication skills with Dom is just as good as the communication skills the writers have with us. Everybody's confused and we don't know what the heck is happening. Artemis wants this because He knows dwarves can open a specific kind of safe, which means Artemis did know where the Oculus was. But early in the movie, I thought they said he didn't know where he was. We've cut back, and Artemis is talking to Holly again. I guess they kind of bond over their dads. So for just some reason out of the blue, Holly agrees to help Artemis. I don't even know what her motivation is, personally, professionally, or anything like that. Artemis has been a jerk since the beginning, and Holly doesn't seem to like him, and no one in the audience for sure likes him. But, you know, at least she punches him, which makes the entire audience cheer. Artemis, Dom, and Holly join Mulch at the painting after Mulch opens it. And Artemis just takes it from Mulch. And Mulch just stands there. And I'm like, when did Mulch plead his loyalty to Artemis? Mulch apparently doesn't care about his deal with the police chief, but nobody talked to Mulch about, you know, if you work for me, you won't have to go to prison at all. And Mulch just seemingly forgets everything about Holly, and he forgets about the elves outside. He's one of the team. He's Team Artemis. I'm just like, what? When? So, while all this is happening on the inside, Creepo's spy suddenly takes over the police force. Why? We don't know. We don't know why everybody's just chill with this. I mean, I guess earlier he was using some big fancy word about, I don't know, the executives or something. So, you know that troll, that man-eating troll they had earlier? They bring him back, and the spy guy is going to release the troll to eat the people in the house, which is what they should have done to this movie. If he's working for Creepo, doesn't he know that he needs Artemis alive to find the Oculus? Because they think he has the Oculus? This spy guy doesn't seem to be very smart. They also block off all magic within the mansion somehow. So Artemis, Holly, Dom, Mulch, and Dom's niece. Wow, this is just like the Avengers. They fight the troll. It's defeated by falling from the chandelier, which is a little odd because normally you need like a decent amount of force to your head to knock unconscious, but the height from which he's fallen is about like this much. Unfortunately, he lands on Dom, and Dom is seriously injured. Artemis yells at Dom's niece to go see, I don't even know what her name is, to go see if the phones will work and if they can call 911. I don't know how he's going to explain the elves, but whatever. And Dom, he's dying because the magic has been blocked off from the mansion. Holly can't heal Dom. And Artemis, for the first time, we realized that Artemis truly does have a heart. Oh, you have a heart! And then Artemis starts telling the Irish blessing to Dom, which is actually a very sweet moment. Holly walks from the room, trying to give him a moment of peace, but wait for this little twisty turn. As Holly is walking away, she gets her magic back, and she rushes back into the room, and she very quickly heals Dom. And the reason why Holly was able to heal was because the magic was unblocked from the mansion. The magic is restored because the other police officers were like, Holly is our friend. Friendship is magic. And they took those My Little Pony slogan quite literally, and Holly was able to use her magic. So they arrest Creepo's spy, who is by far the most worthless thing in this movie. Creepo just should really hire some new people. So Dom is healed, but oh no, the time freeze thing is about to explode. And everyone makes a break for it. So there's so much running and falling and getting sucked in and sucked down, and people are freaking out and they're trying to get out as soon as possible because if they don't get out, they just might die. So they're running, they're flying, they're doing all that they can, and that's it. Everything was in one piece. Nothing exploded. Yeah, what a heart-stopping moment. For a second there, just maybe somebody's life was in danger. So Artemis is like, great googly moogly, I can't give Creepo this. What do I do? And I can't use it because I'm human, because if humans use it, they will explode. Only fairies use it. Holly shows up to use it, and he's like, you're late. Then why the heck were you freaking out over her not being there? Just leave. What's your deal? Like, Holly, for some unknown reason, can use the Oculus. I guess any fairy can use it. No one needs any special formula or anything like that. You just need to be a fairy and use it. This item is a very dangerous item, and its power can be easily abused by really bad people. You think that whoever invented the Oculus would have put a little bit more safety measures into it rather than just, oh, whomever is a fairy can use it. And la-di-da. And so Holly's trying to use this as a Scotty to beam Artemis's dad back to Fowl Manor, and we cut back to Creepo's lair, and Creepo's like, your son messed up. He didn't give me the Oculus, and my spy is stupid. And he didn't say that, but she should have. And so she's gonna kill Artemis's dad right there, and then the thing does this little poofy thingy, and then they hear something, and oh, what do you know? Artemis's dad is back. He's in the office. Artemis and his dad hug a little bit. Then Artemis's dad says some nice things to Holly, and then he gives Holly a list of Creepo's accomplices. And then Holly goes home, and then she has a list of these accomplices for Creepo, and the police chief lady wants her to investigate all of them. Artemis and dad are going to find Creepo. Artemis gets a call from Creepo, or calls Creepo and mocks Creepo and claims he is a master criminal mind. Even though he hasn't stolen so much as a toothpick, but he's still a master criminal mind. So Artemis and his dad get in the helicopter. They pick up Mulch from his apparently interrogation by the government. So Artemis's dad pick him up, and they're gonna go find Creepo. End of a movie where nothing happened. So there's about 10,000,001 things wrong with this movie. Artemis throughout this whole movie is clearly unlikable. I thought when we first started the movie that he was supposed to be this prideful, snobbish jerk, and he was going to be humbled. But no, Artemis was not humbled. He was right about everything. This is the problem with doing super smart kids in fiction, is that they often don't feel like children. They feel like adults who are so much better than any adult who's ever lived before them. This is difficult because, I mean, there are some incredibly smart 12-year-olds out there, but they're still 12. There is still an element of being a child, and this movie did not have that element in it. And I think I figured out why everything was confusing in this movie. I think the idea for the movie was that Artemis was one step ahead of the audience. And that's a mistake, because that leaves the audience completely and utterly confused. Even looking back, Artemis's plan doesn't really make any sense, or even how he would get all of this knowledge. Because even if you say all of this was part of Artemis's plan, everything would have had to go exactly as he planned it. He would have had to have predicted exactly what everybody else was going to do and how exactly they were going to react. And especially for Artemis, in a position that he doesn't know the police chief lady at all, he's never been to the world, he's only heard the stories that his father has told him. Artemis would not have been able to do that. I mean, sometimes you can predict what your enemy's going to do because you know your enemy, but he didn't know his enemy at all. Holly was fairly forgettable, and you know, we have Mold. I don't know, it kind of reminds me basically, as I said earlier, of an evil twin version of Olaf, and it's like significantly uglier and more gross. But the biggest thing with this movie is that it was just nothing. Nothing happened. Artemis Fowl never left the manor, except just to go grab Holly. It was as if he was living during a pandemic. He left once to get something that he really needed, and then went back and didn't leave again. I was never concerned for Artemis's dad. I was waiting for a confrontation with Creepo, but there was no confrontation with Creepo. Nothing happened. You think that perhaps maybe the spy's purpose in Creepo's mind was to get the Oculus, and so that Creepo could have the best of both worlds, kill Artemis's dad, who's been giving her trouble, and get the Oculus too. That spy was such a disappointment. I mean, this movie had a couple of cool things. I think the whole time freeze thing is cool. I like the idea of the fairies living in the center of the earth and everything, but it's such a disappointment that they present this fairy world and we don't even get to explore it. We don't even know how it exactly works. We just get a few shots here and there, and you're intrigued by the idea, but instead we just sit in the house all day. Basically, this movie had no climax. It had no heart. It felt like it tried a little bit with Holly, and even an ever so tiny bit with Artemis's dad, but it didn't work. There wasn't enough there because they didn't give us enough information. And what's interesting is that, well, pretty much what I only remember about the Oculus was that it's a portal between worlds, and it's like, well, apparently people can go in and out of the fairy world and the human world, so why is this so dangerous? I don't know, it just didn't explain what made the Oculus so dangerous and why it was so important to the fairies. I honestly, a prequel involving Artemis's dad and Holly's dad and that whole thing that they did together about getting the Oculus, and that movie sounds to me way more interesting than the movie that I watched. Because in that case, we probably would be in the fairy world more. There would be some real danger, a human and a fairy elf working together. But this fairy seemingly turning against his own people to steal the Oculus and to give it to a human who couldn't use it, so wouldn't use it. This whole heist sounds way more interesting, way more complicated, with way more heart. Like, I'm down for that movie. Do you remember that trailer? That trailer with that super interesting lady and she kind of pops up and she's like got these like white clothes and she looks really cool. She doesn't make a single appearance in this film. She is MIA. Nobody has seen her. She's gone. And it's also what's really strange about this movie. It doesn't watch like a theater movie. It watches like a first episode of a Disney Plus series. But it's a movie and it's even more disappointing. And it was supposed to be released during the summer. I didn't read the books. I imagine the books must have been better than this movie. If you want to watch some mindless fiction and you don't want to think at all, just watch this. I mean, it works. Thanks for joining me. See you next time. Watch this movie at your own risk. You'll probably fall asleep. Bye. I'm filming in a closet. Yes. I'll see if I keep this up. Bye.